His most recent work is monumental in revolutionizing the music industry. So tonight, Global Teleclass is very proud to present Dr. Leonard Horowitz and his teleclass, Medicinal Music and the 528LOVErevolution. Welcome to Global Teleclass, Dr. Leonard. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's a pleasure to join you. I am very pleased to be presenting this most powerful knowledge that really is humanity's last hope. The urgencies that confront us geopolitically and economically, in essence, we need a miracle to get us out of this mess, and that's what I believe tonight's presentation really is about, and that's what the capacity of the 528 hertz frequency of sound is really capable of delivering. The 528 frequency is extraordinary. The background knowledge on this comes actually as the real Da Vinci Code. You've heard a lot of things about what could possibly be this secreted, most powerful frequency code mathematics upon which there's so much turmoil. There's been movies, there's been wars that have been fought over keeping this information secreted, and apparently we're very blessed and privileged to bring this knowledge out. The book called Love, the Real Da Vinci Code came out in 2007, which was exactly when I started to get targeted by what's called COINTELPRO. That's short for Counterintelligence Program, Counterintelligence Propaganda. In essence, those are the folks that have been trying to suppress the truth about 528 hertz frequency and how it is really the essence of the real Da Vinci Code. So if you want to get some background information on tonight's presentation, then check out Love, the Real Da Vinci Code. It was my 16th book. And then now subsequently, most powerfully, is the book of 528, Prosperity Key of Love, wherein we take you through a virtual magical mystery tour of 528, how it relates to this concept of health, and that in essence is really the essence of spirituality, metaphysics, physics. It deals with biophysics, how it manifests in your own body, and the concept that we're living in a universe constructed musically, mathematically, through these special frequencies of sound that we revealed initially in the book Healing Codes for the Biological Apocalypse, and then subsequently in the other books that I've mentioned. This is a revolution in understanding about how we're created and manifested miraculously moment to moment. And so it's a privilege and an honor for me to be delivering this information, extraordinarily important at this urgent time in history where, as I mentioned, we need a miracle. So the concept of what is love, this beautiful, warm, fuzzy feeling you have in your heart when things are going right, or they seem to be, is actually a spiritual essence. There's a frequency. If you think about what is spirituality but energy, what is energy but frequency? What is that? Simply mathematics. There's electrons that are flowing, and that those electrons have a spin, they have an energy, they have a frequency. And so the concept that this magnificent healer, this universal healer, love, the universal healer, is a frequency that is reproducible acoustically, is extremely important, if not urgent. The concept that it's actually right in front of your face, this so simple these truths are that I'm sharing with you, that it actually is all around us. We begin by looking at the botanical world that's celebrating chlorophyll, greenish yellow color, and that is not only the color of grass, but it's the central color of the rainbow. So this concept that 528 nanometers is this frequency, which is extraordinary in its applications, and we're going to look about this as an introduction to tonight's program, is looking at this concept. It's right in front of your face how Creator works to sustain us, to uplift us, to heal us miraculously using the 528 hertz frequency primarily. And by the way, that frequency, 528, is the frequency of the original third note of the musical scale called the solfeggio. The original solfeggio musical scale has 6 notes that were discovered as we relayed in the book Healing Codes for the Biological Apocalypse. And that frequency is the miracle note. It's like do, re, mi today. It used to be ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la. And the third note, mi, miragistorum in Latin, miracles in English, is this 528 hertz frequency. Now you can begin to take a look at the relationship between love and creation and how it's evident all around us by simply looking at the botanical world that is celebrating and reflecting the 528 nanometers of light that, interestingly enough, is synced exquisitely and uniquely to the 528 sound frequency. In essence, tonight we'll learn that without 528 there would be nothing. There would be no circles, there would be no squares, there would be no tetrahedrons, there would be no hexagons, you wouldn't have carbon-6, the organic ring, without 528, and you wouldn't have snowflakes. You wouldn't have 5,280 feet in a measured mile without 528. And so it is central to everything that we are and that we do. And one of the most beautiful revelations comes from this understanding of the sun, which at the heart of the energy of the sun is 528 hertz frequency. That is very simply noted by looking at a rainbow. What's at the heart of a rainbow reflects what's at the heart of the sun. Because as you probably know, the sunlight, which sun is made of about 100% hydrogen. And that it's actually 98% hydrogen, 2% helium, which is double hydrogen. So you got 100% hydrogen, which is the universal electron donor. Now again, everything in the universe is electromagnetically, energetically mediated through electrons. The entire universe, all energy, whether it's the blink of your eye or a comet coming through space, is actually being produced by electrons. And so this concept of piezoelectricity, every reaction, whether it's chemical or metaphysical, deals with this concept of electron flow, and with hydrogen being the primary donor of electrons. That gives us a full, incredible understanding of how important this subject is, because pH, parts hydrogen, or power of hydrogen, is intimately connected to your health and longevity. You may have heard that all chronic diseases occur in a body chemistry that is acidified. That means that it has lost its electrons. It's deficient in energy, therefore. And so you're run down, you're tired, your cells are in need of energy, electrons. And where do those electrons come from? Hydrogen. They all come from hydrogen, and the simplest chemical reaction is H plus OH minus equals H2O. That's water. So water, the universal solvent, is actually part, if you look at the Bible, part of the triune God. In essence, in the beginning you had the Creator, you had the water, and then in Genesis 1:2 you had the Holy Spirit, first mentioned, whereby the Holy Spirit hovers over the face of the water, divides the water from the water, into which the words are sound are electromagnetic frequencies again, and so the Creator's language is math. It's based on mathematics. Sound frequency energetics is mathematics, and that's the Creator's language. So that language was put into the water, out of which popped the sun. Now you have the essence of what we're talking about. The sunlight is actually God's voice, God's words, mediated through water, and that even the atmosphere that we're in right now, I'm right now broadcasting from the desert, and even in the desert it's hydrated, otherwise you wouldn't be able to hear my voice. The electromagnetic frequencies that are moving through the water in the atmosphere actually delivers that, and the experimental model that you can think about is how dolphins and whales, the cetacea, are able to communicate thousands of miles underwater, whereas we on land can only maybe do a couple hundred yards. So this concept that hydrogen being donated through our hydrated atmosphere in the electromagnetic color spectrum that we can see in rainbows, and of course a rainbow is a refraction of that sunlight going through water. And at the heart of the rainbow now what we see is this greenish yellow color. And this greenish yellow color is this 528 nanometers of light, and that relates to this sonic creationism, this model for creating light and sound and all physical material matter out of frequency bioenergetics and bioenergy comes out of this, whereby you realize that the frequencies of sound, particularly initially, and then light, create the physical reality that we're witnessing. So metaphysics, in this case, this is the metaphysical reality, deals with spirituality, intimately connects to modern physics and modern mathematics and the proof that we're talking about here. So you have the sunlight beaming these electrons, resonating at its heart at 528 hertz frequency, and that, of course, those go down and they hit the beautiful chlorophyll molecule that is beautifully created in the sacred geometry through what's called cymatics. That's the science. You can look up C-Y-M-A-T-I-C-S. It's the science that deals with the effects of sound on the material world. And so the chlorophyll molecule is a cymatic manifestation of frequency vibrations that takes on the pigment of greenish yellow to reflect to your eyes this most magnificent, uplifting, warming, and loving color. You may know that that color, greenish yellow, is the heart chakra. Of course, it would be. Makes complete sense in Oriental medicine. And so this concept that now the sunlight is giving love, 528 energy, through the atmosphere, hitting the chlorophyll molecule that itself is a manifestation of love. Taking in then that energy with the electron energy, again resonating in 528 hertz frequency, it begins to issue oxygen. It takes carbon dioxide, converts it to oxygen in the air that we breathe, and that is the sustaining factor. That is what uplifts us and sustains us. In fact, the Bible talks about this as the life is in the blood. And what's the life that's carried in the blood is this love frequency of 528 in the oxygen. So the concept that oxygen is created with the resonant energy of love, literally from the heart of the sun, which is really the heart of the universe, the same frequency resonance in the musical mathematical matrix of creation. That is, we're going to talk about tonight, the matrix of math that creates the universe. Well, the heart of it is this 528 hertz frequency, and again, how you can come to realize that is by simply thinking of as above, so below. As it is in a rainbow, so it is in your heart. The center of a rainbow is greenish yellow, it's 528 nanometers. Likewise, the center of the musical mathematical miracle matrix of this music is 528. In fact, that's the third note in the original musical scale out of 6 notes. Next to it is the fa molitorum, do, re, mi, miragistorum in Latin. Fa molitorum means family, the miracle family, which is evolving now to understand what we're talking about here is how to recreate ourselves, how to recreate everything in the resonance energy of love, exactly like how the Creator operates, forever giving, forever sharing this magnificent frequency of energy through the air that we breathe, the sunshine that is moving through the atmosphere, filling the oxygen, the ha, the breath of life, and the prana with this vibrating electron power of restoration and sustenance. So this is the essence of who we are and how we survive and how we're sustained. It's the essence of longevity, and it is, in terms of alternative medicine or natural healing, it's the most important factor. It deals with hydrogen, the power of hydrogen, parts hydrogen, the electron donation that's required for sustenance. Every chemical as well as physical reaction, metaphysical reaction, spiritual reaction has to do with this electron flow, this energy dynamics. And again, the heart of this electron resonance is 528 love. This has a lot to do with what the ancients had to discuss and had to share. The beginning of science stems back to Aristotle's book called Physics. The root word comes from philos, which means love. So the beginning of science has everything to do with the 528 frequency and the mystery school mathematics that we're talking about, the frequency dynamics of creation. That's the real Da Vinci Code. That's the essence of the beginning of science. As Aristotle pointed out, this concept of philo-math was the most important study in all of science, in all of life, really. This word polymath has a lot to do with what we're talking about. Polymath sources from the Greek word polys, meaning much or great in quantity, mathis, meaning learning. So a person who excels in multiple fields, like the Renaissance man and Da Vinci, was a master of polymath. And this concept of math being central to history is likewise relayed in the term polyhistor, where it's a synonym for polymath. This again is the language of the ancient scientists, the mathematicians, the scholars in Pythagorean mystery school mathematics. It means to have erudition and wisdom. Erudition is derived from medieval English and Latin. It means scholarly achievement from instruction and reading, followed by assimilation and contemplation that efface all rudeness, smooths away all raw and untrained incivility. It is the depth, polish, and breadth that is applied to this concept of education, and the root word of education comes from educare. It means to draw forth from within the individual. Every single person, you have within you this extremely amazing power, divine power, in fact, inspiration. You have unique giftings and anointings, and the expression of those in your life to fulfill your own unique destiny is what the true meaning of education is all about. It's not indoctrination as it has become in common modern day education and academia. It is literally this magnificent process of unfolding who you really are in the world and taking advantage of your blessings. This concept of history, the word history containing that E word, is a symbol for energy. And again, this common knowledge now of energy in mathematics having to do with this creation concept of how to recreate ourselves and recreate the history of our planet instead of being engaged in division, false manipulations and indoctrinations that leave us less than compatible, less than harmonious with each other in society. We can begin to understand what we're talking about is pure loving harmony. And that is the essence of what history should be evolving towards as we now move into a greater paradigm, a more sane paradigm. The definition I mentioned earlier of philomath, meaning loving of math, meaning you're a lover of learning also. This was the original meaning of the term used by Plato and Aristotle and Pythagoras and Vitruvius, the mathematician geniuses who were also the initial scientists. And that it is relative to discipline or disciplina, and it's also related to doctrina, or learning the fundamental laws governing everything, such as cognitio or cognition, that is understanding, and that is part of what this revelation is about, because a 528 hertz frequency is your heart resonant energy, your premier love vibration in your heart. Well, what is the mind? What is the cognitio? Well, it's your ego. And that is what's been manipulated by the indoctrinations in academia and mainstream media. Those are the psychological operations, the head trips, if you will, that have literally created this culture in which we currently live that emphasizes the gods of science and this concept of pain, fear, loss without the gods of science, you know, taking your disease to dis-ease, by the way, to a medical doctor, a medical deity, the concept that science is going to solve all the problems. And in fact, I remember Sting's verse in which he's not aware of any innovation in science that hasn't led to more problems. That's really this concept, how the ego is not the source of your sustenance. It is what the mainstream media, and particularly the news media, plays to. Pain, fear, loss, real or imagined threats to survival stimulate the ego. Well, so does the music, specifically the A440 standard tuning, you'll learn, if you study this material, that the 741 Hz frequency is part and parcel of the A440 standard tuning that was instituted by the Rockefeller Foundation. Way back in 1938, the Rockefeller Foundation persuaded, with the help of Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister for the Third Reich, the British Standards Institute to implement not love frequency 528, but 741 within the A440 standard tuning. They literally persuaded the British Standards Institute to institutionalize for the Western world and all the music in the Western world the A440 Hertz frequency tuning, and that then gives you in the D chord the F sharp note, which plays in what's called the devil's tone, which is related to 528 as the devil's interval. So you've got this play in modern music between love, which is what we should be playing and tuning to, but to this concept that we're in dissonance, we're in disharmony, we're in the most aggravating and degenerative of all of the frequencies, instead of playing music in 528, love, or A444. If you simply, as a musician or vocalist, a recording artist, tune up to A444 instead of A440, then that shift, even though it seems small, 4 Hertz, it's actually like 40 times the static that you get. Let's say if you're listening to radio at 99.6, you turn to 99.7, suddenly you don't get the clear channel broadcast anymore, you get static. Well, 40 times that is the difference we're talking about here between A440 standard tuning and A444, which gives you your C in 528. That then becomes medicinal music. It becomes healing music. And that's what the revolution is all about. The 528 Love Revolution is all about bringing about first the musical revolution through the musicians who can feel a difference when they tune up. And there's a lot of evidence for even concert orchestras tuning to A444 at the end of the concert. Everybody still is in tune, versus A440, where at the beginning everybody's tuned to A440, suddenly at the end, by the end of the concert, everybody's in dissonance and people are way off. So this has been recorded, it's been actually published in the British Society of the Arts, the Royal Society of the Arts, and that this is part of what we're talking about here called philomath. If you love this whole concept of music being part of the universal language for global healing and restoration, peace on earth, and optimal freedom and prosperity in all ways, it's got to rely on the mathematics, and the mathematics has to be correct. And that really is the essence of philomath, a lover of learning and involved, as the philosophers of old were involved in what was called mathema, education, arithmetic, geometry, including sacred geometry and astronomy. All of this has to do with musical mathematics and even the birth of science in physics. The beauty of what Aristotle taught also relate to what Da Vinci's real Da Vinci Code is really all about. 5218 is the essence of the Da Vinci Code. It's all about love and integrating the feminine or the heart, the intuitive with the masculine, and becoming a whole person. That's really what Da Vinci had in store and in mind when he did the Vitruvian Man. The most famous image reflects as the icon of natural healing and holistic healing and the universal man concept. This Vitruvian Man is actually a woman. There's a woman standing behind the man, and you can learn a lot about that when you read the book Love, the Real Da Vinci Code. The concept of certainty, without mathematics and this whole concept of harmonics and the musical mathematical matrix of creation that Da Vinci and the greats understood, this is where Da Vinci talked about certainty. Da Vinci stated that there is no certainty where one cannot apply any of these mathematical sciences. So universal certainty, divine human unity, the creativity is established by math, and the road to finding oneself, including your highest qualities and greatest creative potentials, is likewise paved by this mystery school math involving the matrix. Now, what is the matrix? Well, the matrix, the musical mathematical matrix, the first time I learned about it was from mathematician Marco Rodin. Rodin took this very simple mathematical pattern, and by the way, matrix is defined as something within or from which something else originates, develops, or takes form. It's a rectangular array of numbers, algebraic symbols, or mathematical functions, and of course matrices play an intimate role in every aspect of life. The word is found several times in the Bible, in Exodus and in Numbers. Moses bade sacrifice to the Lord for all that open up the matrix. This was done so that Hebrews could be free. God said, "Everything that openeth the matrix in all flesh shall be thine." And this is a fulfillment of that prophecy and that most important subject matter. The heart opening is what this concept of the 528 Love Revolution is all about. It's what these revelations of 528 frequency dynamics, opening the heart. It is the key, the musical note, to the house of David, according to prophecy in Isaiah 22:22 and Revelation 3:6-8, where in these end times, where there's wars and rumors of wars and economic collapse and earth changes, weather changes, and weird things happening, well, we're virtually in need of a miracle in order to bring us out of this insanity. And that miracle is a key to the house of David that opens doors that no man can close and closes doors that no man can open. And those, of course, are portals to this concept of opening up the heart, bringing in love, bringing in the energy for electrogenetic optimal function, where we become the full human being and beings that we were intended to be by nature. Not indoctrination, but true, pure education, a fulfillment of our callings to be all that we can be. And Rodin had fallen into this, or conceived of this, through a very simple understanding that could be taught to grade school students, where if you simply begin with the number 1 and you double it, you get 2, and you begin to see the pattern that he calls God's fingerprint on everything. This is called the infinity pattern by Rodin, and you begin to see in this diagram, if you put a line between 1 and 2 and then double 2, you get 4. You take a line there and then double 4, you get 8. Now if you double 8, you get 16, but in mystery school math, in Pythagorean math, you only have 9 numbers in the universe. So 8 and 8 is 16, that's actually 1 plus 6, that's 7. That's where you come up with the line between the 8 and 7 in this diagram by Rodin. And then 7 and 7 is 14, 1 plus 4 of course is 5, that's how you go from 7 to 5. And then 5 and 5 is 10, where 1 plus 0 is 1. Now you begin to understand how you've got this double-winged pattern, at the center of which, just like at the center of a figure 8, you have a very interesting single point, like a black hole, if you will, or 0-point energy, where the vectors of energy flow are in all directions. And this has a lot to do with, again, the revelations in the book Love, the Real Da Vinci Code, and even in the book of 528, Prosperity, Key of Love, where you begin to see that we can recreate magnificent peace on earth and harmony, literally recreating the Garden of Eden, if you will, by realizing that all physical manifestations come out of like this 0-point energy zone, and that it is pure loving, heartfelt intention, pure consciousness of love, that is the core fundamental creative energy that sources this magnificent reality. And this is reflected in Rodin's drawing, in my opinion, and that even though I've never heard Rodin speak about this, I can see that this is what ultimately underlies these revelations. You also note that the 3s, 6s, and 9s are not part of this pattern, that they form this alternative dimension, if you will, out of which spiritual manifestation is heavily involved. It was Nikola Tesla who said to his students, John Keeley and Royal Raymond Rife, quote, "If humanity only knew the powers of the 3s, 6s, and 9s, it would be a completely different universe," end quote. Aristotle, Plato added the 8s. They felt 3 6s and 9s plus the 8s were the extraordinary spiritually endowed numerology or mathematics. Now there's a lot of controversy right now on the internet, and I don't want you to get sucked into it. It's a lot of COINTELPRO propaganda. Well, COINTELPRO stands for Counterintelligence Propaganda or Counterintelligence Program. It was initiated by J. Edgar Hoover. It was further advanced by his colleague who was named Ted Gunderson. And he, of course, has his disciples that have been heavily targeting yours truly, and Sherry Kane and Barbara Hartwell and numerous other people who have been targeted for discrediting and libel and trying to undermine and confuse all the issues. That's what they've been doing for a long time. In fact, John Lennon, whose message was "Let's give peace a chance," was heavily targeted by J. Edgar Hoover and the COINTELPRO, and I believe ultimately he was assassinated by that group. That group today is promoting what's called 432 Hertz as an alternative to not simply 528, but it's supposedly the end-all be-all to healing frequencies. And what really gives it a complete disrespect, not to say that 432 Hertz is a bad frequency. In fact, it's an excellent frequency. In fact, it's a natural frequency in the resonance and harmony with 528. And that was proven mathematically by Victor Showell. And you can study Victor Showell's brilliant work. What he did is he considered cosmology and the sacred geometry of the great pyramids of Giza. And he looked at the mathematics underlying the structure and the geometry, the way it was laid out cosmologically, and how that ancient knowledge, it's really amazing. It's off-planet. It's super terrestrial, if you will, and intimately connected to the metaphysics of spiritual creationism. This shows you that 528 and 432 Hertz are intimately connected. They both go well together. But according to people such as Jamie Butterf, who is a COINTELPRO operative, who used to work for the Pentagon and had come out for no reason at all and started to attack yours truly and started to attack 528, claiming that it wasn't even part of Rodin's family group numbers, which was an absurdity, because Rodin himself never would back that, even though Marco Rodin's organization was infiltrated. This is what COINTELPRO does. They infiltrate, they try to discredit, and by confusing everything and everyone, they literally cause this, what's called dissonance, in what's called the Hegelian dialectic, where you have on one hand a thesis, on the other hand you have the antithesis, the opposite, and people then go into synthesis or mass confusion. They don't know what to believe and they tune out, and that's how apathy is generated. That's why the electoral process is so undermined today. Everybody's confused and everybody's divided. The main way to divide the sheeple, to conquer the flock, is by COINTELPRO psyops. And so the 432 group has been taken over, actually advanced, by the psychological operations component of how indoctrination and social manipulation, social engineering has been taking place. And this is extremely important to understand. There is no controversy. They've generated this conflict. They've generated this controversy to create confusion. Ultimately, just realize 528 is pure tone love, and 432 has a resonance energy that is part of nature, and it likely is very healing. Other people can go ahead, do wonderful research, and discover what the attributes of 432 are. I've written the book of 528, and that's all about love. That's about miracle. 432 is not an original solfeggio note. 528 is. 528 is the third note of the original musical scale. It is the miracle note. Love is the universal healer. Love is the miracle worker. So this is the summary or conclusion that I've come to. Don't pay any attention to those disinformation artists out there that are trying to claim that 528 is somehow inferior to 432. So this concept that from your heart there is a connection between your heart and God's heart is extremely important, because that's the source of love. It's forever giving. That's the constant generation, regeneration, and restoration of energy coming from love in God's heart, reflected through the musical mathematical matrix of creation, which in the religious world is called the kingdom of heaven. Jesus said that not only every word that comes out of your mouth either reflects the goodness in your heart or the evil that dwells therein. That concept of words being sounds, the lips, the labia ratum, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, that note is part of the original solfeggio musical scale. It's your creative instruments is the lips. So whereas God created through the spoken word, you create through your spoken words, and that this concept that it either reflects love, 528 resonant energy, harmony in your own heart, or the evil that dwells in your head. And that is really the battle. You're either in love, that's life, sustenance in 528, or you're in dissonance and despair and fear in 741. And that is, in my opinion, based on the evidence, the conclusion that genetics, there's potentially a genetic predisposition in some people, in some potential races of people, whereby they vibrate, they receive, and they express or broadcast more of this dissonant 741 frequency that stimulates ego and fear and takes you out of harmony and love, versus this concept of those who vibrate better. They have electrogenetic receptors and transmitters of love. And that is ultimately, I believe, the chosen. I don't believe in this concept of the Jews being the chosen ones. Because today, what are the Jews chosen for? This whole concept of COINTELPRO, in fact, people who are collaborating with those who are advancing the challenge or question as to 432 versus 528, they're outputting this concept that Zionists are behind the world's problems. Well, again, you got to be a fool to buy into that, because again, it's not simply the Jews who are running government. Obama is not a Jew. The Bush family is not Jewish. The royal family of England supposedly are not Jewish. And people like James Baker III are not Jewish. And in fact, if you want to even consider some Jews who are involved, such as Henry Kissinger, look, for example, at what Jesus said, beware of those who call themselves Jews who are not. And in fact, Henry Kissinger has been excommunicated from the Jewish religion because of his connections to the global genocides. And so this is where the world stands versus where we need to be going, and we are going, and the world shall go into this connection, reconnection to pure love as a resolution for the hypocrisy, the insanity, and the genocidal manipulations of the populations that create the deceptions through mainstream media, mass mind control, breaking free of those illusions, bringing us back to where our hearts are, where the power is. If you can study people at the Heart Math Institute, you begin to learn the power of the heart far exceeds the power of the head. Your ego is extremely limited by this dissonant, resonant energy. Intellect is interesting, but it ain't where it's at in terms of creative inspiration. It's your heart. And musicians know that, and that's why we feel very confident that at the forefront of the 528 Love Revolution are the musicians. Now, this concept of electrogenetics also being expressed by 528 becomes very clear. Again, study both Marco Rodin's infinity pattern, and you see that that reflects literally the genetic double helix, the DNA segments and the sequences within the DNA strand. And likewise, when you study the work of Dr. Masaru Emoto, who is a dear friend and a colleague of mine, he actually shows you in this image that he created in the cryogenic and, in fact, cymatic laboratory that he has, where he plays certain musics or plays certain frequencies to water, steam distilled water, and then takes cryogenic photographs. He flash freezes the water and looks at the structure of the crystallography that in this particular case shows you an arch. It's an arch, like an architecture. This was produced with 528 hertz frequency. Dr. Emoto visited us in Hawaii, took back some breath of the earth, some Hawaiian holy water that we gave him. He also took back the 528 water resonators. And this is a slide that he took using a water resonator that resonated in 528. And as you can see, it's an arch. Very interesting structure that has those same patterns, those genetic sequence patterns of the infinity pattern of Rodin in there, reflecting that the arches and architecture sources from arches and archangels sources from that same word, and that arc is part of the circle. And if you study 528 cymatics, the sound of matter, the science of the sound of influencing matter is called cymatics. And if you study that science and you study the work of John Stuart Reid, for example, he took the 528 hertz frequency and was astonished. He had never seen anything like it. In all the frequencies that he played to water, he never saw a full 360-degree circle come out with 36 equally distant points on a circle. That's what you get when you play 528 Miracle Tone of Love to water. You get the circle. And that helps you to understand that indeed, without 528, you wouldn't have the capacity to have circles. You'd have no sacred geometry. You'd have no squares. You'd have no hexagons. You wouldn't have snowflakes formed in the shape of six-sided hexagonal ring structures. You wouldn't have carbon-6 organic chemistry. You'd have no life. You'd have no ability to measure space-time without circles. And pi and phi and the Fibonacci series, spirals, all relate to this concept of arches and circles creating the arch or the architecture. So this is a beautiful revelation, very simple, and you can also see that this is incredibly important for creating technologies that can heal the planet. For example, we now produce the 528 orgone generators for pain relief. We have them for tuning forks, the 528 tuning fork stand. Not only does it resonate the matrix, which is a resonance matrix within the orgone generator, but the magnetism literally reflects that of the natural magnetism of the earth. Like, you know, when you take a compass and you take it out and you look where is north, the arrow points north. The reason that that arrow points north with a compass is because you've got an electron flow. Electron, again, being the source of all energy. And again, the pH part's hydrogen, vitally important. All diseases, primarily all the chronic diseases, source fundamentally, energetically, from a deficiency of electrons. That's why it's acidification that causes the body chemistry to become the breeding grounds for infectious diseases and chronic diseases, including cancer. All of those chronic diseases are literally incubated in a body chemistry that is acidified. The icon for acid is H+ because it's lost its electron, and that electron is carried by oxygen. And in this particular case, technology that administers electrons, such as these 528 orgone generators, whereby the electrons that are flowing magnetically through this resonance matrix that's been energetically endowed with the 528 hertz frequency, that it then sends the electrons into your body, brewing with 528 love, love being the universal healer. So not only are you restoring the energy, the electrons, and the alkalinity to the body chemistry in the location that you place the orgone generator, but also you're actually infusing your own body and that body part with love, pure tone love. This is some of the technology. Imagine now advancing technologies such as fashions, 528 fashions, or 528 jewelry, 528 homeopathics, 528 oxysilver, the most powerful silver hydrosol in the world, that literally replaces the need for antibiotics and vaccinations that are deadly and toxic. You can now advance silver hydrosols, which is literally a double superconductor of sound and light energy. because water is a liquid crystal superconductor. Silver, along with copper and gold, are superconductive elements. So silver hydrosols, such as oxysilver, that was created by NASA scientists to keep the astronauts healthy in space, we took that, we added the 528 Hertz frequency using sound and light and argon laser and the pure tone of love as it's being manufactured. Suddenly now you have a holy water. We encourage people, the first time in history, you've created a nutraceutical, if you will, that requires, for optimal performance, prayer. Because we understand the clear channel broadcast within your heart that's generated by heartfelt loving intention for a healing miracle literally is this 528 channel. So if you put 528 Hertz resonance in the silver hydrosol, you realize that when you take it as a great homeopathic, resonating with love, the universal healer, then you bring your heartfelt loving intention. It actually amplifies this whole miraculous transformation of the bioenergetics of recreation to recreate yourself in harmony. And that ousts the dissonance. All of the viruses that bring you disease, sickness, literally are in dissonant energy. They're a dissonant energy carrier and transmitter. And what you actually can experience, a lot of people who are spiritually sensitive and do what I say, you pray as you take oxysilver. The best time to take it would be when you first have that first inkling that you may be coming down with something. You take it and you take it with prayer, close your eyes, and you'll actually see this white light of power coming back into your body and then pushing out, moving out, blowing out any dissonant energy with that love light. That's the experience commonly that people have who are visual type of people, who are spiritually sensitive, when they take oxysilver as directed with heartfelt loving intention and prayer to heal and stay well. The tuning fork sets and the 528 water resonators. These are additional products. There's a whole revolution again in the technologies. And again, if you think about this concept of this paradigm shift, the Bible prophecy is that this wealth of the wicked is stored up for the meek. And here we are in a time of history of economic collapse globally. It's an urgent time in history. This is the time of opportunity. And the opportunity for the mass transfer of wealth is going to come through for the meek, the loving. That's what this prophecy is all about. So the 528 Love Revolution, you would be very wise to now invest virtually every ounce of energy and money that you have in 528 technologies. And I'm blessed and I'm humbled and I'm in service to the Creator to administer this blessing, this education, this information. That's what it's all about. Because you see, what's fantastic is as you begin to play, for example, more 528 music, it's not just going to bless you. It's going to go out because we have a hydrated atmosphere. There's water everywhere. Even in the desert, the communications occur. You can hear my voice in the desert because there is some water in the atmosphere. Likewise, space, according to NASA scientists, is full of water. They have filmed crystalline water in space. On Mars, under rocks, they found water in ice crystals. So water truly is everywhere. It is the universal solvent, music being the universal language, and love being the universal healer. You put it all together, and you have a 528 Love Revolution that this is all about. As you begin to play 528 music, or you radiate more love, 528, your heart opens up, but it also goes through the hydrated atmosphere like a pebble in a pond. It ripples out to the extent that it can. That's the farthest reaches of the pond, is the farthest shores, farthest parts of the universe is what is actually being affected, subtly but powerfully, by the 528 frequency of love. And that's really puts us in sync with God's intention to have restoration and sustenance for our children and our children's children, having a peaceful world and a prosperous world, and all ways prospering as what is the prophecy for 1,000 years of world peace. This concept of water I've gone into in great detail in previous books, the book Walk on Water and the book Healing Codes for the Biological Apocalypse. My book for healing is called Healing Celebrations. If you're ill or you know somebody who is sick and needs some information and advice and great products, study the book Healing Celebrations, Miraculous Recoveries Through Ancient Scripture, Natural Medicine, and Modern Science. And you'll find that this information is life-saving. And it's so simple. All of this is very, very simple. And that the only complexity comes when people who want to confuse things advance fields in science that take us out and away from this whole concept of how Creator works to create. Man's creations are nowhere near as perfect as God's creations, and surely that is found in dentistry particularly. In dentistry, we're using 528 in a product called Liquid Dentist, which not only can reverse tooth decay and gum diseases, particularly and most importantly, when you couple it with good nutrition, avoiding the sugar in the foods and the carbohydrates refined that literally feed the germs that are creating the disease. But the 528 frequency in Liquid Dentist helps along with the mineralization of your teeth, as well as the restoration of your gums, as well as this concept that as you swallow it, because your mouth is one of the dirtiest places on earth, you've got more than 500 different strains of bacteria in your mouth and countless more viruses, over 500 different varieties of viruses in your mouth. Oxysilver within the Liquid Dentist, resonating in 528, literally destroys these germs. It literally breaks them down so that then when you swallow this all-natural, good-tasting Liquid Dentist formula, you're actually now creating a natural nutritional immunization against all of those different pathogens. And it feeds your immune system because around your gut there's what's called Peyer's patches. It's the lymphatic system that surrounds your gut that takes on those broken down germs that the Liquid Dentist literally breaks down and then feeds to these immune cells, and then that prompts natural nutritional immunity against all those germs. So truly, you don't need to get sick anymore. Even during flu season, you can prevent these kinds of problems by simply natural nutritional immunization daily with a good oral hygiene regimen using Liquid Dentist and or with Oxysilver. Those are wonderful products, both again resonating in 528. This language of mathematics is the Creator's language, and it's reflected even in the symbols. In the book Healing Codes for the Biological Apocalypse, very quickly in summary, we showed you Dr. Joseph Palaio's wonderful work that showed that the English language, and all language, has a relationship to mathematics. English is like Hebrew, but reversed mathematically. In Hebrew, there's what's called the gematria. It's expressed in many ways. For example, in the word aloha, that A-L-O-Ha, aloha, the first letter A, alpha. The L word in Hebrew is the lamed. It's the heart, love, the lamed of the Hebrew alphabet, reflecting love. And the O, A-L-O, omega, the alpha and the omega. From the beginning and the end, in the middle, there is love, just like what we're talking about. And it's carried just like we're talking about by the Ha, the breath of life, the prana. And so this beautiful concept that language is a reflection, even human languages are a reflection of God's language, mathematics. And of course you can go back to study in the Bible the story of Babylon and how the confusion of the tongues was what God created that brought the division between the people and ultimately disempowered them from being egocentric. They were punished for their egocentrism, and that's what's happening today. It's karma, or judgment day, for planet Earth, because we've gone into this whole realm of confusion and manipulation, genocidal manipulation through mainstream media persuasion, mass confusion, and deception, engaging fear, and this whole concept that we need to rely on complex solutions to our simple problems, really. So this concept that even in language we have mathematics, and the symbols of math become very beautifully clear when you begin to read the book Love, the Real Da Vinci Code. For example, you see that in the beginning there's the circle, and then if you divide the circle in half you have what amounts to a figure 8, also a whole note on a musical scale. And when you then maybe double that, you look at, or you half that, you look at other major symbols such as ultimately the 3s, 6s, and 9s that Nikola Tesla talked about. And then you can begin to see that the icon for the number 6, and of course 528 is a 6. 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 8 is 15, 1 plus 5 is 6. That's Miracle 6. That's how British Secret Service got its name, by the way. It's sacred, secreted information that is extremely powerful for intelligence and manifestation. 6 is a manifestation number. So if you want to be the Gestapo for the Illuminati, or the global industrialists, if you will, the intelligence agency, you would name it the Miracle 6. This also relates to, fascinatingly, the story of Haydn's 96th Symphony, which is called the Miracle. But in counterintelligence have advanced more recently in the story about how that miracle got its name, how that Miracle Symphony got its name. They allege that it was a chandelier that fell into the audience that didn't cause anyone to be harmed. That was the miracle, so it became known as the Miracle Symphony of Haydn. Well, that's propaganda. The reality is that the Phantom of the Opera play, which recreates this whole concept of the chandelier falling into the audience without anyone being harmed, involved in the music of the night. This is the music of the night, is the satanic music of the 741 versus the music of the light, which is the 528 hertz frequency of love. And of course, in the end of the Phantom of the Opera, you get the message that Christina, who represents Christianity, gives her heart over with love to the demon, and the Phantom of the Opera just dies. He just can't handle the love light, and he disappears because he's in dissonance, singing the music of the night. So this concept is of 528, Miracle 6, being involved in so much of our modern myths and our modern plays and our modern performances, and in science and in advertising. The 6 number, by the way, that number 666, 3 times 6 is 18. It's not so much the mark of the beast. It's a hint. It's a riddle that's in the Bible. It's Revelation 13:18. It comes at the darkest time in Earth's history. It's where now God gives you a riddle to solve if you want to get beyond the problems on planet Earth. It states this, quote, "Herein lies wisdom. Let those who understand," that's intelligence, understanding, knowledge, "count the number of the beast, for it's also the name of a man, and his number is 666, end quote. Well, counting is done with numbers. Names are written in letters. So you obviously, to solve the riddle, need an alphanumeric code. And that's the code that we're talking about here, the alphanumerics of language. And so you begin, as I did, to try to figure out who is the man, and we come up with the only suspect is Kissinger, is a 666, Kissinger. And of course that's why we have nuclear weapons deployed around the face of the planet today. We have numerous genocides thanks to Kissinger and associates, who are the main movers and shakers behind the Merck Pharmaceutical Company and numerous other multinational corporations, heavy hitters. Kissinger, of course, works for David Rockefeller et al. Rockefeller and the Rothschild family are intimately connected in all of this manipulation economically of the planet. And so we begin to realize that this is the musical mathematics and harmonics of the resolution, how we're going to get out from underneath the economic disaster that these folks have intentionally created so that they can bring about this new world order.